Howdy-do everybody, this is CT over at the NYC Indian, and today we're going to be reviewing Married at First Sight, Worst Party Ever. This episode is going to be brought to you from an urban Native American perspective, a mixed perspective, and a secular perspective. So let's dive right on in. So we start off the episode with Mark, and he basically says, hey, I lost my job. They didn't want the cameras. I thought that was kind of strange that a gym doesn't want the publicity. Kind of weird, but whatever, their prerogative. So now he has to find a new job, and he tells Lindsay, and Lindsay, of course, she's down for, like carrying the weight until he can get something. And she's saying to him, she wants him to take his time to basically find something probably a little bit more lucrative. I mean, $60K, well, we know what he makes because she definitely let the whole world know from the bathroom that day. That was just terrible. Just putting a man's salary on television like that, that's... Anyway, so I'm thinking, he's telling her that he wants to stay in fitness, and she doesn't want him to stay in fitness. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, if he can find something else that pays $60K plus on top of whatever she's making, they don't have children right now. And Massachusetts, last I checked, which was, in all fairness, of maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but for a long time, and it still may be, Massachusetts was on the very top of all the highest paying states for both licensed practical nurses and registered nurses. I mean, they made even more than the nurses in California. And nurses in California, RNs, were easily making $100K. Easily. I mean, I was like really shocked when I saw like what some of the nurses were making. So I'm sure she makes quite enough to kind of cushion and give him that time that she wants him to take, so he can find the kind of job that she would prefer for him to have, because she's used to dating, the engineers and stuff like that. But as long as he finds something good. But the thing about Mark, though, is that he's fiercely independent. Only child, took care of his grandmother, his mother. He's the guy that all his friends, everybody can rely on. He's, the pushover. Like, this guy wants to be able to make people happy and stuff like that. He's not gonna feel like a man for himself. And he alluded to this in some ways a few episodes back, that he always wants to be able to stand on his own 2 feet and to be able to contribute and things like that. He doesn't feel comfortable just going, oh, well, she makes a lot of money, so, I can just, take my time or whatever. That's her mentality, but that is not his. So, I mean, and then the other thing too, who the hell wants to be at home stuck with someone that you don't particularly like? Because it seems like he doesn't really like her. Now, he was remorseful later on in the episode about the fights that they had, and he apologized to her. But that's his people-pleasing part of himself, because she was the one that at least, I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't do anything wrong, like pulling back on the affection and stuff like that without telling her what that was about. I don't think that was right. I can understand why he pulled back and why he was turned off, but he should have been, more vocal about it. But I guess he's just afraid, because his personality is, he doesn't want to make problems. He wants everything to always be good. And, he doesn't like the confrontation, especially with someone like Lindsay, who is so, goes to hurricane level during those conversations. And I noticed that when she's critiquing him, it's always what he's doing wrong, and she never says what she does wrong, when she is literally exploding. And even in cases where you feel wronged and you're responding to what you feel was the harm that was done to you, if your reaction is even greater than the offense, then it can sometimes make you seem to be like the bad guy, because it's like, well, you dropped that pencil and you didn't pick it up, and then I absolutely cut your head off and condemn you and your whole family and every generation after you, and tell you you're a dummy, and you're never good at picking up a pencil, and screaming at the top of my lungs and telling all the neighbors he's such a stupid idiot who can't pick up a pencil. Then the fact that you left that pencil on the floor, which is maybe in a bad place where I could trip and fall, which is not a good thing, and I've told you 100 times, now it becomes something beyond the initial offense. You know what I mean? So I just feel like her reactions are just so explosive and so just below the belt, that I think I won't say completely checked out, but I think his heart, I don't think he'll ever be able to get back to that place when they were looking at those videos, or at that video of the wedding day, and just, you know, the love, not the love, that's the wrong word, but just like the hope and the happiness in their eyes and stuff like that. Like, we haven't seen that in a while. And I just don't think it's going to come back. You know, he is used to being the chaser. So now that everything is laid out and just ready for him, he doesn't have anything to work for. And on top of that, he's relying on her for basically, you know, shelter and probably food at this point, because, I mean, I don't know what kind of cushion he has with his savings or anything like that. How much, you know, does he have 6 months worth of savings where he can use to contribute, or will she just say, you know what, don't give me anything towards the rent, just use that for grocery? I have no idea. I like to hear a little bit more about how they kind of break down the household stuff, but I guess I don't know. It's well, he moved into her apartment with a whole tragedy, so maybe they just decided to just kind of wait till after decision day to kind of figure those things out, because of his whole, it's everything. They were, I feel like, a wrong match to begin with. He had a lot of tragedy going on in the beginning of his wedding, so that created a lot of, you know, just unforeseen stress on what's supposed to be a very happy, you know, brand new chapter to your life. And, you know, he's afraid to talk to her. So you know, I don't know. I feel like every episode, it's just him trying to, you know, get back to kind of like just being at a peaceful level. But on decision day, I feel like he's got his Jordans like in his bag. He's ready to go, you know what I mean? So this episode is mainly focusing on the 1 month anniversaries of the couples. And Mike and Jasmine are together, and he has like set up this really nice romantic little, you know, spread with fruit and, you know, wedding mementos, things for them to, you know, just kind of reminisce over and kind of walk down memory lane about their first date that they first met, and when, you know, they both agree was like their best day ever together anyway. And, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, this looks nice, and she does seem pleased. She's not like in a, you know, like stuck in a funk kind of place or anything with him, you know, during this episode. But I just feel like it's kind of too late. She's not into him, and, you know, he's not. Didn't she say last week about, you know, making the goosey loosey, you know what I'm saying, if you know what I'm saying, right? So he can't do that for her, basically. She's not, that chemistry, it's not, no basement is getting flooded, nothing like that. So, I mean, the gestures are nice, and I feel as though he really was making an effort. And in this episode, even when they went on to other scenes later on where he took her back to the place that they got married and stuff like that, and she really enjoyed it. She felt as though he was listening to her. But I just think that it's really gonna be fruitless in the end, because if she doesn't have the chemistry, it doesn't matter. But at least they're not fighting, and at least she feels like he finally understands what she means by how he's supposed to communicate. I'm just glad this wasn't a back and forth, Michael, now Michael. I'm glad it wasn't one of those episodes, but, you know, you know, Mike, I know he feels like he's putting in all the effort and stuff like that, and he's saying to his friend at the beginning of the episode when his friend comes over that he's not really sure, like, where she's at, and, you know, he basically knows if it was decision day today, they would not make it. So I think they're just kind of, you know, killing some time, milking the clock, so there's no type of penalty. I think he's still hanging in there a little bit, but I think he knows inevitably which direction this is going into. And, you know, Jasmina, she's checked out. Totally checked out. That's it, checked out. So now it's time for Katina and Olajuwon's gondola ride, okay? You know, I just was not impressed. I mean, yes, he was on cloud nine and behaving himself, but, you know, just like, you know, kind of over the top with the affection and stuff like that. And it made me think, like, you know, he didn't even say anything when she said, hey, I've actually been on a gondola before. I've been to Italy. There was no, like, oh, really? What was that like? Oh, what's it like overseas, traveling and stuff like that? Like, I mean, you know, he just like, there's no, what am I looking for? Like, there's no, like, intellectual curiosity. And, you know, for someone who made it basically from the bottom and has worked their way to the point to being a homeowner and being gainfully employed, like usually you see people, you know, their minds are a little bit more open, a little more broad. They, you know, they wanted to get out of their living situation, circumstances as a child. They want to do better. And when you see that with people who have done that, there seems to be a little bit more of an expansion of the mind. And I don't see that with him. I see like he's improved his living situation and stabilized himself, which is an excellent thing, not to be downplayed whatsoever. But there's nothing beyond that. And it's so exemplary, like how he doesn't ask her any questions about her. When have we seen him sit down and be like, oh wow, so, you know, not just surface questions, but like, you know, what happened when you were a kid, and like how'd you feel about that, or, you know, how do you process your feelings, or what are some of your very favorite things that you would love to do, but you know, I mean, there's just nothing. Only thing he talks about is cooking and cleaning. All right, so that is already telling me that he just lacks a certain just basic common sense and courtesy and skill level when it comes to being with someone else and understanding their feelings and contributing and being a partner in a relationship. He's just not giving me any of this. So I just, you know, that whole little gondola scene was like, I mean, I really could have fast forwarded through that. I mean, his whole, how she's made a complete turnaround, or he didn't say complete, but how, you know, the past week has been so great. So basically that means she's just been cooking and cleaning after your ass. That's it. What else did that mean? Because there's no depth, there's no curiosity, there's just nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And, you know, she's not being basically chewed up at that moment. So she's happy, you know, sipping her drink. I guess that's all it takes. I've given her a couple of episodes to kind of open up and kind of see more. I mean, like to kind of give us a little bit more. I wanted to see more, like if she's really gonna, but she hasn't given it. And we'll get to that dinner party later. Oh my God, what a disaster. But so now it's time for Mark and Lindsay's anniversary celebration, and he surprises her by taking her out to the woods. She'll be completely in her element. You know, she loves plants, flora, fauna. She's just into that. So, you know, she was on cloud nine. That grin, she looks so much like her father. It's not even funny. She has her dad's teeth, like 100%. And even the way her smile kind of goes up in she looks so much like her dad. But I'm digressing. But she, yeah, she's really enjoying herself. I had not seen her grin like that since the wedding, basically. And he's making the pizza, or he's making the fire, getting ready to make the pizza. And of course, she's like breaking his balls about how he's doing the firewood. Like, girl, just relax. Come on, just enjoy the time. I mean, it's not like she was being a Debbie Downer, but she's just a ball breaker. It's almost like kind of like nudging and playing around too much. And because he's already at his wits' end with that, and it feels like he's not used to that in a woman, it's like, I feel like that's part of the thing that's kind of turning him off as well. So, you know, but they wound up having a nice time at the end of the day. But I'm sure he was probably thinking on the drive home, like, you didn't make that fire, you know. But yeah, so now we get to Jasmina and Mike's anniversary, and I cannot take away from him like the effort that he like really put into it. But I gotta be honest here, right? You're coming to me for my unadulterated opinion here. I feel as though it was such a great effort, but it will bear no fruit. Basically, like, he did all of that for nothing. And I know it's his last attempt to really, hey, decision day is coming soon. I really, you know, she is just so pretty. I just, you know, I don't want to miss out on this really beautiful woman. But to me, something like that, that's like a vow renewal sort of thing. So, you know, a vow renewal, I understand where he was coming from. He thought that this could jog up some old feelings and maybe get back to that day, right? And I just feel like it's a very hard thing to get back to, especially when one person doesn't have the physical chemistry, right? So he's trying very hard, and she's receptive. She's very, you know, she seems to be, you know, even emotional about like, you know, oh, this is such a kind gesture, such a nice thing. But we know she's not into him like that, okay? Who in the hell wants to go up there and renew vows with somebody that you look at and basically are like, ooh, you know, that's not my type. She's probably thinking like, you know, those, what looks like, you know, maybe tearing up from happiness is probably more of like, Oh my God. I just wish they would have given me somebody taller and somebody real fine and somebody with no female roommates and a really good job. That's what I think that was all about. I mean, I could be wrong, but because it doesn't make sense that she would be so, oh, this is so great, this is so wonderful, when we know she's not into him like that. That doesn't make any sense. So is she not being honest with us? Does she just not want to come off, as a villain or something like that? Maybe she's looking at how Alyssa's situation turned out, how people look at her. Maybe she's like, oh, I don't want people to look at me like that, so let me just kind of play along and everything like that. I do think she genuinely did appreciate the effort. I definitely think that, but I don't think that she was feeling it the same way he was feeling it. So, every scene with them, I'm just sitting there going like, okay, when is this going to be over? It's hard to watch. So now it's time for Noi and Steve, and they're over by the water exchanging gifts. And, Steve starts off with his gift that he gives to her, and she opens it up. It's a big box, so she's probably thinking like, ooh, what did he get me, right? She opens it up, and it's like a little jacket for her dog. And she was like, oh, okay, that's great. You can tell right then and there. Listen, she sounds like she really loves her little sushi, but she wanted something that was more aimed at who she is, and like, even though I know the dog is a part of her life, right? But like her as a person, as a human being, right? Not dog related. And I just feel like he kind of missed the mark there. Even though she didn't seem overly disappointed, please, I'm telling you what I know. That is not what she wanted to get. It kind of reminds me of like when Michael got the little jacket or something like that, some little dog thing for Jasmina's dog too. And she was like, oh, it would be nice if you got something for me, right? I mean, come on. If it's like the first gifts that you're exchanging, you don't get something for the dog. That seemed to be a little bit like, just kind of like, what was he thinking? And then, hold on, but wait. When she gives him his gift, and he opens up that box, she gave him a Polaroid? Excuse me? Listen, that is a very expensive gift for a man who ain't got no job, okay? I'm just saying. You should have went to Michael's or Joann's Fabrics and got some little craft thing and make something with some popsicle sticks, something romantic from your heart or whatever. I would not be spending money like that. I mean, that's just me. I'm terrible, but I mean, listen, if I'm on a show and they set me up with someone who is everything I wanted, because she loves this man down to his toes. He has everything she wants except a job. So that makes it even worse, because it's not like he doesn't have a job but he's also kind of boring. He doesn't have a job and he's a slob. He leaves his dirty underwear behind the bathroom door or something. He doesn't have a job and he has a really bad temper. You can't say anything like that about Steve. The only thing about Steve is that he doesn't have a job and he's adamant about not getting one. So, I mean, if we just, we still lived off the land in villages or whatever, maybe that'd be fine. He could just grow some corn or something. But because we're living in the city in a modern time, in a modern society, then obviously he has to work, and that could be frustrating. She probably feels like, oh, if it were just for this one thing, that could make it much more difficult on a decision day or something, when a person has everything else you need but something that they can easily get, which is a job, right? How easy is it for someone who's highly marketable and skilled and experienced to get a job? You don't have to change a personality trait. That's just a job. But if his personality trait is at this point where he doesn't want to work, then it would be like having other things wrong. I just feel like that has to be such a crushing blow, to feel like you have everything, like you're so close, but it's just this one thing. But the one thing is a big thing. So later on, they go out into the Boston Harbor, and I thought it was kind of cool. He was giving her the history, like, the Boston Tea Party and everything that happened and stuff like that. However, I would happen to mention, you should always, when you're telling story of American history, you always should include Native history in there as well. I'm just because we're always left out. It's always like a sidebar. And then you have places in like states in New England where there's a lot of tribes, there's a lot of native folks. I mean, and you know, they've intermarried over the years and stuff. So sometimes you just don't recognize them as being native people, but they are, and they're still there. So that's just a little side note, you know, I like to say, and also it's good to acknowledge the land. Okay, so anyway, she wants to know from him basically, or she's saying to him, listen, we've been doing really well. You know, we have great connection. We're starting to love each other. I mean, so now it's time to get some concrete plans into place so that we know exactly how to map this out. And that's not an unreasonable request. The girl just wants a simple plan. I mean, not like a completely detailed blueprint, but she needs to know something, right? And he comes back with, hey, you know, well, you gotta basically acknowledge the fact that I've been trying that at least or I've been willing to have these conversations. So, okay, so let me get this straight. She's supposed to be happy because any other time you'd be like, you know, stop sweating me, I'll work when I wanna work. And instead you're like, okay, yeah, I hear you that I want a job, but I'm not gonna get one. We're supposed to give credit for that? I mean, okay, all right, you're listening, but there has to be some action put into place along with that. Otherwise, she's gonna leave you. I think Noi will say no on decision day if he does not start working. And I just don't know that, you know, how many ever weeks that they're together between, you know, from the time that they got married until decision day is enough time for him to really make that switch inside that says, you know what? It's time to stop playing around. And if I really want to be settled down, like I say I want to be settled down, then this is what I got to do. I just don't think there's enough time for him to make that switch. I feel like he's just too fresh off the heels of still traveling and the wanderlust and all of that. So, I mean, it's just frustrating. I am so frustrated for her because like I said, he has everything that she wants. And from the outside looking in, you know, we're not married to Steve, but we're not blind. I mean, he comes from a pretty nice family. His parents seem to be like nice people. He has a very supportive family. It seems like his siblings would be somebody you could get along with. You know, he takes care of himself. He's tall. He's nice looking. I mean, you know, it's like, but that thing that, of course, in addition to the fact that he is, you know, he seems to like have his head on his shoulders for like 99% of everything else. He's very good at problem solving. He's good at effective communication, like all these good things. But the man, oh my God, almost called him something else. That's not this kind of channel. Anyway, the man needs to just basically, he needs to take a shite or get off the pot. All right? Are you going to work or are you not going to work? I'm done with you, Steve. I've given you all these Hail Marys and all of this stuff. And usually I'm not usually that open-minded. I mean, I try to be an open-minded person in general, but when I see like certain red flags with people very early on, that I get very skeptical. And I leave a little room for doubt, you know, the benefit of the doubt, because people can change. So I'm not saying he can't change, and I'm still really hoping he's going to. I mean, for her sake, I hope he does. I don't want them to end their marriage, you know, when he has all the other personality traits. But, you know, if making your wife feel secure and, you know, having that drive and that motivation, well, he has drive and motivation because he has that towards his hobbies and things like that. But if your drive and motivation don't, you know, equal a paycheck, then I mean, what is the point? So it's hard. He's, you know, usually I get people on here and I've just made up in my mind like, oh no, this is just a bad one. But we've never had this before where the guy has everything but a job. We haven't had it. He doesn't strike me as somebody that would cheat on her. He doesn't even seem like he would ever even raise his voice at her. So we saw those previews for next week, and oh boy, we'll talk about that later. So should I even mention how Katina is telling Olajuwon how he gives her all this joy, and he tells her what a great man he is, okay? Because she corrects him, so he's a great man, right? And basically her cooking sucks. I mean, in so many words, that's what he's saying. So now it's time for them to have their group anniversary dinner, and this got a little bit interesting, okay? They took a limousine over there together, and once they were there, they're at the table. Then Jasmina, she chimes in saying that she still has a lack of chemistry with Mike. And did you see Mike's reaction? He was like, oh, okay. He didn't seem too happy with that. And then Noi and Steve, Noi's talking about how Steve brings her joy and happiness, all of this. And then Steve starts talking about their communication styles and how things are going to have to change and stuff like that. And you can see Noi, she's probably just boiling and roasting underneath, because you know what she's thinking. Now you know what you're doing. You're basically trying to BS and gaslight. And you're talking about pink elephant in the room. You're not addressing the fact that you don't have a job in front of this group, and you're sitting here acting like I'm the one who just doesn't know how to communicate, when you're not telling everybody what it is that I'm frustrated about. I mean, she didn't say all that, but that's what her face was given to me, right? And then they get over to Olajuwon and Katina, and oh my God. This man says, well, I don't know if it's romance or if it's just more of a friendship. And everybody was like, what? And Katina's really like, she's like dumbfounded, like, where is this coming from? We just had this great gondola ride and all of this, right? And then he starts going on about, you know, I know some things, but I don't want to reveal it right now, or maybe I should reveal it. And she's like, no, we'll talk about it later. And basically what it came down to is that he had found a dating app on her phone, right? And had it been anybody else, I'd be like, you know what, you are dead wrong. You should not be on the show, blah, blah, blah. But because it's him, it's just like whatever. I think the girl honestly did forget. And because she's so busy cooking and cleaning and stroking his ego every 13 seconds in between having a full-time job, she doesn't have any time to date. She's not out there with anybody else. I'm sure he keeps tabs on her. I'm sure he's a controlling person, a very, very controlling person. So he's got to know she is not out there looking for somebody. Now, I think it was an honest mistake. I don't think it was a good mistake, and if they had given her a decent man, then, you know, a decent man could say, hey, you know what, that's not right. Even if you forgot, you know, get rid of it now. I don't want to have any questions of trust later on. She could have been very, she could have been confronted, you know, with completely, it could have been a justified confrontation had she been given a man of quality. And because they gave her no quality, that's what you get. So now, because she's always afraid, you notice that with her? Now, I know not everybody agrees about, you know, how I feel about Olajuwon, and that's okay. That's all right. But you cannot deny his behavior, right? I mean, you cannot deny the way that he speaks to her. It's not soft. It's not kind. And I mean, I'm not talking about when he's like love bombing her. It's like, with him, it's like either or. It's like, oh, it's so great. You're the best. You're the most wonderful. Or it's, you're not doing this enough, you're lazy, you can't cook, I'm not really into you like that, I don't know if I'll ever be able to love you. Like, that's all the stuff. Those are all things that came out of his mouth. Everything that I just listed were things that he actually had said to her. So he's just, from day one, I mean, it just hurt my heart to see this girl with him. Now, yes, does Katina need to grow a spine and speak up for herself and all that stuff? Yes, she does. But I mean, it's just like, it's just so unfair that she got stuck with this person to begin with, because she's the kind of person that will stay in an abusive relationship. She just is. Look at her. Instead of her checking his ass a couple of weeks ago, she's been doing more to basically please him. Right? That's what victims do when they are in situations where they are in a fearful situation of their partner. And, you know, on the after show, like, she said that, you know, yeah, people think I'm quiet. I'm not really quiet. I mean, I say what I need to say. And I think when we saw the clips from last week where she was, you know, they get back to the apartment, and, you know, he's confronting her about the app, and she was like, you know what, get this camera out of my face, and you're gonna see the real Katina come out and stuff like that. They tricked us last week. They had us thinking that she was saying that to him. She was saying that to the camera crew. Now, yes, the anger was directed towards Olajuwon, but she still couldn't say in that moment, you know what, you need to shut the hell up, pack up your shite, and get out of here. Hit the bricks, all right? Take a walk, take a hike. I mean, she really needs to go off on this guy. I mean, so what this brought me back to was the attraction question. And I know that there's some questions out there about, is he attracted to her? And I mean, I think it's a valid conversation to have, right? I mean, he definitely seemed physically attracted to her in the beginning. And I am wondering, just wondering. I'm just putting on my little, psychiatry hat here, psychologist hat. Is he, I know he's never dated a woman like Katina, meaning he's never been in a serious relationship with a woman of color. And I do think that he thinks she's nice looking, but I wonder if it's kind of like, you know how you see somebody like out of the club and stuff like that, and you think they're kind of nice looking, they're looking good or whatever, but then you see them next week at the grocery store and you're like, oh, like I'm wondering if deep down, because she's so different physically from what he's used to dating, because he said he hasn't dated, he's never had a serious relationship with a black woman before. Now, I don't know if that means all of his former partners were white. Most were white. Were some of them Hispanic? Were some of them mixed race like him? I don't know. He didn't give us enough information. So I don't know what he considers as being non-black in his dating history. But is it possible that he just kind of saw her and, kind of just took one look at like the model-esque kind of, physique and stuff like that and was like, ooh, but maybe later on was like, yeah, she's nice looking, but she's not what I usually go for. And then we see her in every scene with, she wears the kind of sexy clothes and stuff like that, which she can totally get away with. I mean, she's skinny, right? But maybe for him, he has something in his head. Maybe he feels like she's just, maybe he just really doesn't want a black girl to begin with. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I really don't know, because I was trying to pay attention to body language, right? Most of this review stuff that I do anyway is body language. I go with what they say, but I really like to see how people react or how people's reactions to one another, how that goes about. And I was looking at him in the gondola and how he's kissing and kissing and kissing. But I think maybe because he's so on the like ups and downs with like, he's really, really happy, or he's like, denigrating and there's nothing in between. Maybe there's just no room in him to be attracted and to sustain that attraction and try to turn it into something more with a woman that looks like her. Let's get on another topic. Let's talk about her hair, okay? Now, she during the wedding, she had on the wig. It was a very full, super thick, illustrious wig. For someone maybe who's never dated someone who wears extensions or wears a wig, maybe that was like one of those things where, listen, hairstylist here, okay? Let me tell you, I worked behind the chair for a long time. In fact, I worked in the beauty industry for a long time in New York City, and I had clients that were both men and women. And it's almost like a barbershop. And where I work, it was private, like there were private doors, and people would just spill their guts and tell you all kinds of stuff. And they would be very self-conscious about wearing, hair, because I had some of my men clients wore hair pieces as well. I mean, very high end, it looked very good. You couldn't tell when they go outside, but, sometimes, they would say, oh, well, I'm dating now, and, I don't know what to do because she wants to reach up and feel my hair, and I'm just very self-conscious about that kind of thing. And these are people that are dealing with, actual genetic hair loss. So I just remember, like, to myself, well, I remember what those clients would say. And for women, a lot of women would express to me that, of course they don't want to wear this hair, but they feel like they have to. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm a woman. Most guys don't care. But there are some guys that do care and some guys that don't want that. And even though he hasn't brought that up on screen yet, I'm wondering if he's using that, or maybe not using that, but maybe that's another like thing he's using to say like, oh, I don't really like this girl, or just like, she's not all natural like the ones that I'm used to, and I can just see him in an argument like, you wear that wig all the time, I can't even touch your real hair, I can't get to know the real you, I can't feel you. Can't you just see him going off and like denigrating her about something like that? I am really wondering. Now, while he's definitely brutish, he's not stupid. And remember when he was talking about his dating history and his lack of, he's never dated black women before, maybe, just maybe, because he already knows the backlash that he can get, he just doesn't go too much into it. So I think that he knows that the wig is like a hot button topic, you know what I mean? Because a person that's wearing a wig, you don't know. They could have genuinely be suffering from hair loss like my clients did, okay? Or it just could be for fashion. Girls just wear wigs for fashion nowadays, and it's not like it used to be where it was such a, it was such a taboo. I mean, girls wear wigs all the time. So I am really wondering, and I have not brought this up in any of my reviews yet, but I wanted to just kind of observe a little bit more and see if he is really bothered by her wig. And maybe that's like one of the things that he's using, like, she's always in the club. She looks like those girls in the club with all the hair and the tight, skinny clothes. Even though he wants her to look sexy for him, eventually it's going to get to a point where he doesn't want her looking sexy for other people. I mean, I'm just really, I'm just trying to put on a little, a hat here to get like a different perspective. Now, I would love to hear from you all out there. What do you think he thinks about her hair? Please leave that in the comment section, because whatever information you guys or whatever feedback you guys give me, I would like to discuss that in next week's episode. If any of you guys, I don't know if you know her or if you know him, and are there any conversations happening in the background about her hair? I mean, it's so much more than hair, but I am wondering if that has something to do with it, because I have heard men, especially men of color, express that they don't want to date someone who doesn't have their real hair. And I don't know. Is that the case with him too? Is he looking at her and using that as another thing to, basically, knock her down with? I'm just curious about that. But anyway, listen, wow, what an episode. I just, the whole friendship and him, saying, oh, I think this is a friendship. I mean, why would he say a friendship? I don't know. It's just so hard to say with Elijah one, because like I said, love bombing 1 second and then putting down, denigrating the next second. I just do not know with this guy, and I do not want to spend too much time and energy. I'm hungry. It's time to get lunch, and I'm just so done talking about his ass. So anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm so happy. Thank you for all my new subscribers. I see all of you guys, and just a big shout out to you. I really appreciate it, because that's the way we can kind of grow the channel. Because the more that I can grow the channel, the more I can do things like lives. I would love to do a live with you guys, but I have to have there's certain criteria that's needed for that. So you have to have certain people or whatever. And when we do lives, oh, those lives can be absolutely off the chain. I am so looking forward to those. But anyway, okay, I'm talking to my last breath here. Please stay safe. Please take care. If you do like the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, subscribe, comment, something like that. So anyway, take care. Che pisa lacho.